What question I'm asking is why we want to divide nature and artifact itself, even before we said. And is this boundary is a real thing? You mean my hand, some of the microorganisms keep living in my hand, but I want to believe this hand is mine, not their territory or something. But my hand is also nature, maybe I don't want to believe it, but maybe some parasite living here. I don't know. But maybe some germ and microbiome and some virus and many other things still live in this hand. But with current perspective as a culture, we erase them from my hand. I believe my hand is mine and nobody can occupy this.
Welcome to Therapy for the World, an interview series exploring the personal stories of people working across the spectrum of self-care and world care. I'm Dan Sikorsky, a writing teacher and therapist, and the other voice you hear is Hyun-Yong Chung. Hyun-Yong is an entomologist and PhD candidate at Cornell's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I reached out to him because when I met him a few years back, I appreciated his thoughtfulness and his quirkiness. He's someone who doesn't fit neatly into categories, a person who might be described as contrarian or sui generis, someone of his own kind. In his work as an entomologist, Hyun-Yong also draws from his training in environmental philosophy, especially the phenomenological tradition, which centers on observing the world, its things, and its occurrences neutrally, with curiosity and wonder. From the beginning, his work has explored the blurred boundaries between nature and artificiality, asking how biodiversity can flourish in spaces shaped by both humanity and ecology. That includes hybrid landscapes, such as solar fields in the Northeastern U.S. or the Demilitarized Zone between North Korea and South Korea, where Hyun-Yong is originally from. In this conversation, we trace his journey from his childhood fascination with insects to his current projects as a doctorate student. We talk about ADHD as both a challenge and a source of focus, and his use of poetry to describe nature exactly as it is. We recorded this on Wednesday, August 13th, 2025 at 2 in the afternoon. Here's our conversation. It's been about 2 or 3 years since we spoke for the last time, and I feel all the freshness of those earlier times being with you again now, in both of us in different countries. I was in Spain when we talked last, and now I'm in Argentina. You were in Korea, and now you're in the United States. It feels like we're playing worldwide tag. I would love to start off this conversation, as we tend to, by asking you if you can point to an experience, a person, something, anything in your early childhood that you feel shaped the person you are today.
Actually, I don't know reason why, but when I was really young, like 3 or 2 years old, my parents still remember that I'm playing with dead bug's body. I can't remember, but they told me that. So I think the interest toward nature is kind of naturally bloomed in myself. So, but with that interest, how I live right now is structured by some experience in my childhood. Like I feel like when I read textbook in school, I sometimes found that how human distance themselves from nature. Maybe some is right, but I feel a little bit. I want to pursue more explanation about that statement. Is it true or is it false? But at the time, I have no one to ask because teacher told me that this is just truth. You should take it as a natural law. But I keep asking about that question when I grown up until high school. And then, as you know, I dropped off high school because I believe that I couldn't find answer about that from textbook anymore. So I drove off the high school and I said, and then I get into DMG Research Institute and follow them few years, and then they adopt me as a member finally. Then that's the start of my research as an ecologist, and said, and then I get admitted to Korean education and what's that biological engineering as my major when I was undergraduate student. And at that time, I realized that the science, keep studying science itself, still can't resolve, I still can't answer about the question. I should study social science and philosophy and literature because I realized that the answer I'm pursuing right now very is kind of is not very sharp fact itself. It should be controlled by culturally or the experience of humans. And the question is changed to why people want to believe that, why it is so important to believe that the human is so different from other form of natures. So that's the point when I'm studying philosophy. So what I'm saying right now is I ask the same question with different method like science or philosophy and literature, poem, many other things. So and yeah, and in addition to that, as we as I told you 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I had an ADHD. ADHD is sometimes helpful to pursue something I believe, no matter what the result will come. You know what I mean? I When I focus on something, I don't care about anything else. So that's the motivation how I can pursue how I can keep pursue the question I really concerned about without concern about how my what's that life career looks like. So I keep changing the major. Maybe people think I change the major too much, or I'm concerned about I'm what's that I studied too many different things at once. But I in myself, in my heart, it's all connected. So it's all helpful to pursue what I want to pursue. So is that
That
right answer? I think it's a little bit abstract.
it's a right and abstract answer. Abstract answers can also be right answers. I like the question you pose. I would phrase it this way and let me know if I'm understanding it correctly. Why are humans so insisting on differentiating themselves from other animals?
Other animals, other organisms. For example, uh, I mean the yeah. For example, why existing is better than absence? Kind of why existing as a human is better than existing as other form of nature. Maybe we can find some answer, but I believe that is is not the statement given by nature, is given by ourselves. But sometimes we confuse some statements as a nature law or something. You know what I mean? So
You were saying earlier that you felt your experience was shaped by your ADHD as well.
Yeah.
Generally,
Yes.
that leads to some distraction from a subject one would like to be more concentrated in, right? It leads to more to being a little bit more absent, maybe. But you're almost explaining that your ADHD anchored you or organized you. How is that so?
Uh, yeah. I don't know about the what's that? I don't know deeply about the medical perspective. Just can describe what I experienced. So uh, I believe my nature, who had as a person who has ADHD, one good thing is I think that this distracted was a hardship when I try to focus is a very minor things, minor characters derived from ADHD. Uh, I feel the ADHD helped me to don't see others. I don't care. I don't, when I try to do something, I don't care about the other result. For example, the career or my grade or my future job or something. Just keep focusing on what I really concern. And sometimes people may hard to understand why I'm so obsessed to something. Like this little question is why is it so important to you? Or is it more deep than the, some job it can give you more money? But that's I am. That's who I am. I don't care about the money and future job. Just keep pursuing them. And I believe this is one characteristic of ADHD. And the other thing is AD as a I believe my ADHD helped me to become a person who had bravement, encouragement, who has courage to explore many other things like philosophy, science, literature, poem, many other things. So yeah, I read a medical book that state that the ADHD person has uh, not that good at what's that imagine future or the future outcome. For example, the marshmallow. Have you ever heard about the marshmallow experiment? That there's an experiment that a child who ate marshmallow first get was a lower income than a child who keep the marshmallow for future use. But thankfully, I'm a first child I described, first kid at the who eat marshmallow right now. That helped me to jump into something I really interested every time. So I think that helped me to pursue what I'm doing right now.
It sounds like a deficit of attention on anything besides or beyond that which interests you, which is
Yeah.
a way to both redeem the experience of ADHD and also the marshmallow's first child, the one who doesn't wait for the researcher to come back so that they might get another marshmallow as a reward, right? You're like, I want this now. I want the experience immediately. I hear that. I see that. I like the redeeming quality in that. You talked a little bit about the DMZ Ecology Research Institute, where you went after you dropped out of high school. I would love us to linger there for a little bit. Uh, what is the DMZ for those who haven't heard of it or maybe don't recognize the acronym? And also, were they very were they very open to you coming on despite not having a high school degree? How did that, how was that not an impediment?
Mm. Actually, DMZ is a stand for the Demilitarized Zone located between North Korea and South Korea because they actually illegally the war is still going on. So that's the boundary where the very thin piece stay there. So DMZ is a DMZ is a place where most people can't get in. Only military forces can get entered to these boundary sections. And there's some wide belief as a culture in Korea. Maybe some other researchers who live in other country that the DMZ is prestigious wilderness because people can't go in there very often. And this DMZ Ecological Research Institute study the DMZ I just described. They got was that some special permission to access to get in there by military forces. And then, yeah, when I drove off high school and I knocked the door the very first time, they they said they have some program for youth who the program where the youth can learn about research and what is ecology and many other things about the DMZ. And but at the time I want something more. I I want to face the DMZ as a person, not as a high school student or something. So I just follow them for 1 year, just what they are doing in there and what they concern about it, what's their interest and what's their dream and vision, and what kind of future they are dream about by keep doing their research. And after 1 year of following, they they give me very small research job, but they realized that I'm very interested in insects. And at the time, there was no insect researcher in that organization. So yeah, I'm doing the insect research in the institution, and they satisfy what I wrote. And then, yeah, finally they give me the official title after 1 year and a half later.
What
Yeah.
drew you to insects?
It's really tough question, you know. I even thought I'm doing PhD in entomology department, but the why I'm doing this is because, uh, but the reason I guess I can only make a guess about it. They looks cool. I think they looks cool, and they are everywhere. I mean, the bird. I can watch birds, but birds are very fast. They are flying away. But the insects' time and their space is really different from ours, even though we are in the same space. So sometimes insect doesn't care about human presence. So I feel like they reveal their true behavior, even though I'm staying left to there. Is you know what I mean? The bird is hard to do that because they are flying away even very far distance. So yeah, I think the insect is easy to observe and they live they stay there as they are. So I think that's the point I admired. And I was kid. I must feel that they are cool. They looks cool.
You talked a little bit also about how there was this idea in Korea that the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, was a very nature abundant, untouched wonder, of the natural world. And I got the sense when we were speaking earlier that that myth was sort of toppled when you actually got there. What did you find instead of it being a pristine wonder?
what I saw there was a DMZ. People want to believe that DMZ, actually DMZ itself is outside from human touch, but there's a zone called CCZ, which is the buffer era of the actual DMZ. But buffer era also highly inaccessible to normal civilization. Only people who have been lived there for a very, very long time from ancestor, they can they can have some land in there. But they also can't stay there. They need to go back to outside of the boundary when sundown. So anyway, what I found from my research is what people, the small number of people who do farming in the CCG is the key factor of the biodiversity of DMZ, because there's some concept of, the Koreans grow a lot of rice. People who do farming in CCZ, they still use the traditional way because they can't do any construction in CCZ. So they still dig a hole and store water in this very muddy hole, and they use this water to provide some for irrigation purpose. And my research revealed that with this traditional muddy hole, the rice paddy field and nearby wetlands show higher diversity than just the wetland, leave it as it is. So my what I realize is actually this kind of human touch, why people want to erase this contribution given by human. Why people want to believe that DMZ as a prestigious wilderness, and that's the reason why the that's the only reason of the high diversity of the DMZ. People still keep using, even scientist research paper refer this term. They start like this: DMZ is one of the most prestigious wilderness in Earth, kind of. So why even scientists want to believe that? So that's the moment when I have interest in anthropology, because what I believe is this belief is derived from cultural or historical background. And my conclusion was that we still want to keep our dream that in somewhere there's some true nature, even though the outside of that area we lose almost every nature, but there must be some ideal nature still there somewhere. People choose DMZ as that ideal nature belief. That's what I think. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So and this kind of misconcept actually triggers some issues, because there's a western side of the CCG and eastern side of the CCG. Eastern side is very mountain hills, so there's no farming there. So government think this western side of CCG is touched by human relatively more often than east side. So west side's natural value is lower than east. So they have plan of highway. They actually try to construct some building and very highways on western side of the DMZ because they think it's not true nature. But it's not true. Because of the human touch, the western side of the DMZ show higher diversity than eastern side of the DMZ. So I want to break this kind of misconcept and miscommunication and misbelief, because other issues in conservation science and other biological sector also has this kind of biased problem. So
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing a lot of myth busting and a lot of disruption of binary thinking. I can think of at least two binaries that you've been sort of circling around. The first, more connected to the question that's animated you since those early days, and that's human animal, right? Like, or human non-human. What is
Yeah.
so what is so special about that binary, or does it even exist? That's one. And then another I hear you speaking about now around DMZ, and I think also around your current research, which I'd love to ask you about, is nature artificial, right? Like nature and non-nature. Where are you, how and where are you studying that now? It was really hard for us to get together today because you are on the fields every day, and you wrote to me that you were on insect time. So what does that mean? And also, what are you working on these days?
Yeah, these days I'm working on the solar field. I mean,
What are those? What are solar fields?
solar field is a very wide area which is covered by the solar panel to generate some electricity. And what's it? Including myself, the first impression is I don't like when I first heard about the solar field. I don't like that the solar field is very artificial and sounds scary because it generates electricity. So it must be harmful to nature itself. But when I actually do some research in solar field, I realize that there are still abundance of biodiversity and flourishing lives in there. The key was that the solar field, people don't care about the vegetation in solar field. Uh, if they can, was say, keep their panels in there. So the biodiversity and the composition of species is not that different from natural vegetation. Sometimes it's better because solar field creates some shade. These days, the summer where the temperature is higher and higher. So actually, bees and pollinators use benefit of this cooling effect. I can actually see the bumblebee take a rest under the panel, like 2 p.m. or something when the earth is too hot. Anyway, so I'm keep asking this question: what's the boundary between artificial and nature? Why you I I myself want wanted to consider this place as an artifact area which can damage in nature. I mean that this is not the concept about the human can contribute biodiversity or something. What question I'm asking is why we want to divide nature and artifact itself, even before we said. And is this boundary is a real thing? You mean the my hand, some of the microorganisms keep living in my hand, but I want to believe this hand is mine, not their territory or something. But my hand is also nature, maybe some, I don't want to believe it, but maybe some parasite living here. I don't know, but maybe some germ and microbiome and some virus and many other things still live in this hand. But with current perspective as a culture, we erase them from my hand. I believe my hand is mine and nobody can occupy this. So I think this is the same question about this, the same understanding about the solar field. So, for example, we believe this indoor condition as a human territory, but we still find a lot of bugs, even in my home. I don't know where they came from. Maybe they live there forever, but my home itself is still occupied by many other bugs. But we think then these bugs, how should we consider these bugs? Why they live there? It's not nature. But once they live, it's nature. They like this place and they adapt to this place. And how can we divide this place from their life? That's the question, derived from solar field.
It's fascinating to hear you talk. So many different tangents open up that I'd like to explore together. I'll just mention two things before I ask you something related to this. One is that around me right now, if I look up into the corners of my living room, there are at least 15 spiders. Um, I have drawn some disapproving glances from some visitors to my home who've said like, why are there spiders in your house? And why are there spider webs just on the ceiling? And of course we like think of that as like a sign of how your space is not being protected or you're not cleaning your home. I clean my house every weekend. I clean my house all the time. But I love those spider webs there. So I wanted to mention that to say that I'm with you on the on the interest in disturbing that idea that a home is not also an ecosystem. It can be like I live here with 15 spiders and a cat, plus probably a lot of different organisms that I can't see. Um, and I also wanted to share in that vein that I stayed in an Airbnb in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, about a
Yeah.
month ago, and I was with my mother, and she saw a bug in her room and was a little bit panicked. We were staying, the Airbnb was like on the side of a mountain, so there was a mountain right next door. So I guess it was a sign that like a lot of, you know, nature could enter. And she got scared and she's like, I don't want to know what you do with it. Please do something about this. And I went to the kitchen and I grabbed a cup and I grabbed a cutting board and I, trapped the bug there and I brought it to the window and it left the house. And I was so glad to see that would be an irrelevant story if it weren't for what happened next, which is that the following morning, while I was just having my coffee on the couch, I noticed behind the couch that the Airbnb owner had left a
Oh,
a section, a sign that said in Portuguese, I think it's like salva insecto, which is like save insects. And it was like a piece of like laminated paper, so a sturdy piece of paper plus a big Tupperware that you used for that same purpose that I had gone into the kitchen, right, to find the cup and a cutting board. But she had set one aside for Airbnb guests to use for that purpose, which I thought was so noble, and I'd never seen something like that before. Um,
oh,
yeah.
wow. It's really admirable experience.
Totally admirable. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, connected to all of this, you've said that you find that there's a modern essence inherent in conservation biology, and that you like to think of alternate biologies. What is
Yeah.
that all about?
Mm. Before we jump into what's that, abstract explanation, let me talk to you about the one episode conservation project in Korea. Uh, Dung beetle, who eating dung and rolling dung, and dung beetle uh, has totally gone from Korean Peninsula 50 years ago. It's extinct right now regionally, and but there are several reasons why they go extinct, went extinct, because the people use what's that a lot of medicine for cow right now, and dung beetle can consume that kind of dungs. And the other thing is the dung beetle live in very muddy and dusty road or something, but these days all the roads are covered by concrete, so they can't make home, their hole to dwell or something. And the other reason is dung beetle require a lot of large space to support their population, but there's no many patches remains in Korean Peninsula, and these are costs. But look, few years ago, Korean environmental government, they set a plan for restoring dung beetle project. So they do test of the DNA of the extinct Korean DNA dung beetle specimen, like a 7 years ago one. and they extract some DNA and compare the DNA with which population in this world is the most close one from what this peninsula had before. And they find that Mongolian dung beetles' DNA is highly matched with the Korean dung beetles. So they bought dung beetles from Mongolia. I heard that they pay 500 for each individuals of dung beetles. And anyway, yeah, they bought a lot of dung beetles from the Mongolia, and they released these dung beetles to some island, nobody living there. And then, as I described, these days cow eat differently, so their dung can't be consumed by dung beetle. And there was a issue occurred that these Mongolian dung beetle, no matter what their DNA is, they eat horse dung. But in Korean Peninsula, the horse never been native before. It's brought by human use. And so they also bring some horse from somewhere and release this horse to the island. And but and I saw the interview that the scientist who take a charge for this project, he mentioned that dung beetle is very valuable because they are decomposer in nature. So these days, the humans was that the ecosystem lost a lot of decomposer, so we need to revive them who can serve as a decomposer in nature. But let's make this straight. The island who have never lived, which means the cow have never lived in this island, and the Korean name of dung beetle is cow dung beetle because in Korea they always rely on cow dung, but now they eat horse dung. And so what I see right now, this dung beetle living somewhere new, eating something new, only DNA is same, but scientists, under scientific perspective, people believe that this is successful revive of Korean dung beetle because the DNA is same. So what I'm saying right now is why this is conservation. This is something new. Grow something new and place them to something new and let them go some new direction. Why they want to call it conservation? I think there's no reason of science. Science can't explain this. What I'm thinking is only cultural reason and historical reason, and why people want to restore this dung beetle, and what they believe and what they hope can explain why they are doing this. And think about, I don't think this so-called conserved dung beetle can do any decomposing behavior in nature because they still rely on human giving dungs brought by Mongolia, imported from Mongolia. Actually, scientists import some horse dung from Mongolia and still give it as a feed to these dung beetles. So the organism who 100% rely on what human give to them, how they do act as a decomposer in nature. So, but under scientist perspective, it makes sense because they have same DNA from the Korean dung beetle with Korean dung beetle, and the dung beetle should work as a decomposer no matter what context is, because the point of science is every fact can be abstract and can be repeated no matter where you are. But as a phenomenologist, I believe what I see right now, there's no decomposer in this island and nothing revived. That's the point. So what I'm thinking is the modern boundaries between human and nature, DNA and environment, and species concept itself, even the species concept itself is sometimes ambiguous, like this dung beetle episode. Their DNA is same, but they work differently. So what is species here? Can we define the species as just several characters like decomposure or DNA or body shape? Or I think those kind of things are not enough to define species itself as we see right now. So I think the belief, the tendency that we have right now is we can differentiate this from that. And we know what is difference. But I think when I'm studying more about the biology, I realize that these boundaries are derived from human imagination, are the way how we experience the world and what we want to believe. So that's the essence I'd like to change it. So yeah, and the alternative biology means that I think too, when I realize these issues, I can approach two different ways. The first way is adjust the current ecology in current ecological ways. The other way is how about the devise some new, not new, alternative biology, which can also cover these kind of issues. The theory that can explain these kind of issues, which is integrating to culture, our philosophical, many other domains knowledge. Because sometimes scientists believe that not maybe not all scientists, but the scientists I noticed believe that they are independent from what they are doing right now, because what they are doing right now is the law of universe, not law of human. That's the power of the science. But they believe they are independent from what they are doing right now. But for now, what I see is they are highly integrated into what they are doing right now, and what they are doing is also shaped by how they think and how they behave and the way how they experience things. So I think humans should as an observer, humans should be integrated into biology, and that makes much more sense.
We were
So
talking about this earlier in the context of poetry also, right? Like erasing the the boundary of like observing something, erasing the conception that one is observing something and instead being that thing or observing the world through the eyes of that thing instead. I think this is related to a word that you used earlier, phenomenology. You know, you identify as a phenomenologist, and I'm wondering what that perspective means for you and what it brings to the table.
yes, and as I described, the question about the boundaries, it started from the very early age of mine. And I find that there's some philosophical trend which can cover these kind of blurred boundaries. Phenomenology is they don't try to set a boundary between emotion and logic, between body and soul. They start from what they witness right now without any understanding and interpretation. They try their best to just start from here. And they accept the boundary, the blurred boundary is the true nature itself. And with this, what's that, the phenomenon which is in front of me, it exists first, and then try to experience this or explain this. We overlap our concept, our way of think on the phenomenon, and this explains the what's that my critiques on science, like dung beetle restoration project. And my what's that way of writing poem, I try to be the phenomenon. I try to write about the phenomenon itself, and yeah, it's also give me some how we should be different as an ecologist in the future, because these days many boundaries are blurred, like gender or human or non-human or cyborg. All right, I think this is a better way to understand the world, right? So that's the reason why I called the current science as modern science, which is everything is so simple to divide this and that. But I think the future is more mixture and entanglement of many other things. So yeah, that's the point of the phenomenology I try to pursue in as
taking
an ecology.
taking things as they are, as you said, what they witness right now, which are lovely principles. I'm drawn to other examples of this worldview in my field, psychology. I really respect the phenomenological psychology tradition because it does that as well, right? It says, let's look at this as though it hasn't already been understood prior to the observation. I think of that sometimes when I meet a new patient at the hospital. I have their case files on hand if I'd like to read about what others have said about them and what diagnoses they have, for example. But I've been encouraged to, and I've gladly chosen the path of meeting the person first, right? Meeting the person first, seeing what you see in front of you, who this person appears to you to be. Perhaps then later you might complement that perspective, that original witnessing with some case file, right? And to use a more mundane example, I don't know about you, but when I go see a movie, I do not want to know what other people have said about it or what they've said it's about. Even like the one sentence synopsis of a series on Netflix, I try to not read it because it conditions you. It tells you this is going to be about this. For instance, this is going to be about conservation. And so you decide to look at the dung beetle through a conservation lens when it's so far from that, right? It's like because that word is used, it frames the whole discussion around dung beetles when perhaps it's a discussion that belongs somewhere else. It belongs in GMO research, it belongs in something else entirely. So, really, really fascinating. Another term that you've used is the Cthulhu scene, which is taken as a different way, as a step beyond the Anthropocene, which some of us are familiar with. But I wonder if you might speak to that a little bit. What is the Cthulhu scene? And what is the Anthropocene as well, since it's not a term everyone's familiar with? Yeah, why do you hold those terms as central in the work you do?
Yes. Uh, Thank you for asking the question. And actually, before we talk about the Cthulhu scene, I should clearly state that this Cthulhu is different from the old god of the novel written by the Lovecraft. This Cthulhu came from very old god of native people in America, and this concept is borrowed from the Donna Haraway's recent works. She's an anthropologist and also a very pioneer to blur everything what we believe. And so there is some movement in anthropology and philosophy and some scientists that how we should rethink about the way we used to understand the world. And these Cthulhu's, they proposed, the Donna Haraway proposed Cthulhucene instead of Anthropocene, because even in this stage, we still want to center ourselves to define the word, right? Anthro means human, right? So, of course, this Anthropocene is a good word to express the how human history, the modern human history, triggered some issues in world scale, but they want to criticize. How about chicken sin? You know what chicken sin is? Because this is a joke thrown by the Donna Haraway that the chicken bone sin means if the alien dig a land and they will find a lot of chicken bone in our area, but we still want to present human as a represented term to define this word. Even we regret what we have done. So that's the attitude. Use the reason why I use the Cthulhu sin, and the Cthulhu is a kind of god to care everything about came from earth. I mean the soil, and it doesn't differentiate it this and that. It just let them be flourish and care about them. So that's the alternative term they present. Of that these movements, scholars movement present as alternative term.
Why are you drawn to this term?
Because I think I myself also don't like use Anthropocene. I sick and tired of anthro anymore. Human thing, human that. Anyway, the anthropology, Anthropocene. So I try to find the alternative, and I already read about the Donna Haraway's works, and I liked her works, and she proposed some nice alternative, so I adopted. And as you know, the boundary itself is the key issue to myself. So the way how this Cthulhu or native god blur the boundary is, I love it. That's the reason why I choose this term. Maybe chicken bone scene can be, but I have no guts to use that term for my introduction. Sorry.
This question of blurring the boundary is one, as you've said, that has animated your research through different fields. You know, you said you say and show, and I think this conversation has also shown that you've sought answers in philosophy, in science, in observation, right? And
Yeah.
another and in childhood play with bugs. But one sphere that you've also alluded to earlier that we haven't talked a lot about is writing, literature, poetry specifically in your case. I know you've recently started writing again. How is that an approach to blurring the boundary? How do you go about writing poetry, and in what ways is it a tool for you to engage in this process of blurring the boundary?
Yes. Uh, the way these days, the writing way I try to is just describe what I see right now. Just describe as they are. Don't overlap my emotion and my feeling or something on this object. Just describe what they are doing, and just describe what I can see from this landscape right now. No order, just describe it. Of course, this is poetry, so it shouldn't be so random. I should also pursue the aesthetic value among them, but at least the very first structure is deriving from this very bare witness of landscape. And that's the way how I approach about the poem right now. And this is also equal to my attitude as a penologist, because we are so familiar to overlap something, but poem is mine. This poem is mine, so I can control everything in this short writing. So I try to pursue what I want to. So as a penologist, I just don't want to understand them, just describe it as it is. And you know what I mean?
Totally. You mentioned objects, that you would write about certain objects. What objects draw your attention?
Oh, yeah, it's also mostly derived from ecological objects. Like, the most recent poetry poem is about the frisbee and the dog chasing the frisbee, and the shark. I heard that in Florida, that many sharks make some circles and die because of the climate change. I encountered the news. Anyway, this frisbee and dog chasing the frisbee, and this shark who makes some weird round. And I myself also make a circle on Earth not to die or something. Anyway, and this circulation also overlap to videotape, which can be go forward and backward. And those kind of the series of image which can link together and just describe it.
In this circle, as we close out today, in this
Yeah.
circle, what has been your working answer, your working response to the question that you've been posing since high school?
Working answer. Yeah. The working answer is truth and belief is different. But truth is not always valuable than belief. I appreciate the effort of conservation scientists, including the dung beetle researcher, because I value their hope and I know it's a beautiful thing. So I don't criticize their effort, but just treat them fair. No hiding something, no cheating on something. Just make it fair as it is, and then let's discuss again with this clear picture. That's what I pursue. So, yeah, many things derive from belief, but the belief also can be valuable than truth itself. That's the attitude I'm having right now.
It's a wonderful working answer. Thanks for sharing it. Thanks for connecting today. And thanks for the work you're doing. I find that you are troubling truths and also beliefs, questioning them, blurring them, and it's refreshing and also deeply calming. I feel very calm talking to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me this wonderful interview and treat me well as a host. It's always a pleasure to having conversation with you.
Thanks for being here. If this conversation resonated with you, consider reviewing Therapy for the World or sharing the link with someone who might appreciate it. Until next time, speak with care and listen deeply.